Hey everybody, Mike here. So one of the many tools that you'll need in your cool toolkit if you're in the datacom or telephony world is one of these Fluke TS100s, which is a cable fault locator. Now if you've been in the industry for a while, you've probably already had one of these at some point in time. Maybe you're just picking up another one because you lost yours or yours finally did go dead on you. But if you're new to the telephony industry, let me explain this to you real quick. It's a pretty easy tool to use. It's an absolute lifesaver, especially if you're running any kind of data cable or telephony cable at all. And this isn't just for that. This can be used on coax as well. Now this is made by Fluke. Like I said, the model number on this is a TS100. Comes in this little carrying pouch, which is mine lives in pretty much full time. I'll get this out of the bag for you real quick so you can take a look at what this thing actually is. That's all there is to it. You just got the 3 buttons on the front with the little display. On the back here is where your batteries go. It houses 4 AA batteries, and these last for quite some time as long as you don't accidentally hit the button and turn this on. And that is one of the downfalls to this, is that button can get pressed somewhat easily, especially if you're carrying it on a tool pouch from time to time. Now when you turn this thing on, right now it'll show you the dashes because I don't have the BNC connector on the top hooked up. If I hook that cable up like this, you'll see 1 foot displayed. That's basically measuring the length of your leads right here right now. Now if you want to test your leads to make sure they're good, all you do is push them together like this. It's going to give you that solid tone and let you know 0 feet. That's letting you know it's got a fault, telling you your cables are good. Now on your cables here, they're just standard style alligator clips. They do have the bed of nails inside there, so you can clip onto a wire with insulation without having to strip it back. That's a pretty handy feature. And then on the back side of your meter here is a little graph, and I'll explain that here in just a minute, so remember that. There's some values on the back. You can change the different gauge sizes based on what your VOP value is for that cable. We'll go into that in detail in just a minute here. You're back to hooked up again, ready to go. It measures up to 3,000 feet in distance, so you can not only check the length of a cable, it'll guide you right to within about 5 feet of an open if you're chasing an open down in a wire. Now this has to have 2 conductors to be able to measure. You can't just run one, and if you're measuring for a short, you have to be across the 2 pairs that are shorted together. A second ago I said I explained that VOP value too. So if you hold down these 2 buttons here at the bottom and then press your power button to turn it on, it's going to show you, in my case, a 66. That's kind of your default measurement. That's kind of the go-to, in my opinion. I leave mine on 66 pretty much full time. If you needed to adjust that value up or down based on what cable you're working on, you can do so, and then just hit your power button again to set that setting. If you look in your instruction manual, there's a couple pages in there that show you these values, and that's also what's on the back of this meter here that I was just talking about. 66 in my case is for twisted pair 24 gauge. That's pretty much what I run into when I'm running any kind of cable trouble. I know if I'm running 22 gauge or 19 gauge, 26 gauge, I can always push that up a little bit to get a more accurate reading. For me, if I'm running any kind of pairs down, it's going to be out in the field on a telephony wire. I'm not usually in a datacom setting anymore, although I've done that in the past as well. I've got about 15 years total experience in the telco world altogether. Honestly, with that set in the right value, if I clip onto a pair inside of a pedestal or up in an aerial terminal outside, this will get me within 15-20 feet most of the time. And in all honesty, if I'm driving down the road trying to find that fault, that'll get me within 1 span of cable that I need to know. And I know that's where my fault's more likely going to be. So it does a really good job of at least get me in the ballpark. I may only have to make 1 or 2 more stops after that if I'm chasing a fault down. Another nice feature on this thing as well, like I said a second ago, you can short these cables like so. It creates that noise. What you've also got here, if you've got a probe, this will actually generate a tone out for you as well. That tone will get a little on the dim side, especially at that 3,000 feet mark. If I'm going to run any kind of distance and I need to locate a pair, I usually go find just a dedicated tone box to be able to find those pairs. But if I'm just inside doing building wiring, I'm only going, maybe 1,000 feet. This is more than good for that kind of application. But when you turn this thing on, it generates a tone. That's the default tone that it'll go to. Now, if you short this thing out, it'll change tones, letting you know you found your short. So you know you got a good twisted pair or whatnot. So I'll show you what that sounds like real quick. So it's got several different tones you can run through. And what's kind of neat about that as well is if you're running multiple pairs and you're wanting to avoid going back and forth, and you've got a couple of these things laying around, you can change those tones to where they're offset by 1 or 2 different audible tone noises. And when you get down, you can kind of ID your tones as well. That's an extremely handy feature. I use that quite a bit as well. Since I hired in back in like 06, 07, when I first became a contractor, I've always had one of these clipped on my pouch. It's one of my go-to tools. I've had a number of them over the years just based on dropping them out of the air or maybe losing a couple now and again. If I remember right, I think I've had this one on my truck for 5 or 6 years now, and it's still going strong. Just a real reliable tool, get you down the road. Probably easily one of the top 5 or 10 tools that I go to and grab when it comes to any kind of telephony or telco work. That's all I got for you today, guys. Appreciate you watching this review. I hope that was somewhat helpful today. You guys have a good one.